Hello everyone, welcome back to Quest Rewind, the podcast where we like to reminisce about video games and consoles of the past. Today is a very special episode because we're not really going to do what I just said. We're actually going to be looking at something a little bit more recent.
Yeah, you know the thing we're known for? Not this week.
Yeah, not this week. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about From Software games, going through their back catalog of all the Souls games from Demon's Souls all the way up to Elden Ring. Well, today, joining me, Keith Hamilton and I are going to be talking about Elden Ring, the game that came out in 2022 that has taken the world by storm. We're just going to have a spoiler-filled session of gushing and talking about our experience with this game. So
this is
again,
a full
spoilers.
spoiler cast. Nothing is sacred. If you're on the fence about checking out Elden Ring, maybe put this one on the backlog for a bit, because you really should enjoy it, and probably a lot of what we are gonna say won't make that much sense to you. But nothing is sacred today. Everything is on the table. We are going to talk all things Elden Ring, and I cannot wait.
Yes, I'm really excited for this conversation. Again, we will be going back soon to our regularly scheduled quest of Pokemon once Juan returns, but we thought in the meantime that we will be doing a little From Software tribute here and ending it off, I should say, with talking about Elden Ring. Again,
Because
this game came out.
I don't know about you, Ryan, but for the last 2 months or so, when I'm not playing Elden Ring, I'm thinking about Elden Ring. When I'm not thinking about Elden Ring, I'm sleeping and dreaming about Elden Ring. This game has consumed me in a way that very few games do. It's a very special thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I have spent a lot of that time. I think I'm finally at the point, and this might be a good kind of post-mortem for me with Elden Ring, of kind of tying it off here, because I've done almost 2 full playthroughs of the game.
Wow.
Over
amazing.
130 hours easy between the 2 playthroughs. And I am kind of ready for the next thing because, I've just spent a lot of time in the lands between. And, I got some Zelda videos I need to finish. I've been working on a Twilight Princess review for way too long because I haven't finished the actual playthrough of the game. And I'm finally okay, I'm ready
Priorities.
to play.
I understand.
Yeah, I'm ready to play Twilight Princess again. Because there was a moment where I had played so much Elden Ring, and then I went and I'm like, I gotta start, getting through this Twilight Princess playthrough. And I was playing it, and I was just having that moment where any game that wasn't Elden Ring just was not fun to me.
Yeah.
And I'm finally past that point. But for a while, I'm like, will I ever be able to enjoy another game?
Yeah, for real. That is, I think that is exactly most of the gaming world has felt that for the last month or so. It's so rare that a game comes out and just captivates everyone the same way. And this is a really, really special game that did exactly that.
Yeah, and again, another thing that, and I'm talking about, I do run a Zelda channel, Game Essays, if you haven't checked it out yet. But
on YouTube, make sure to comment, and subscribe. After you subscribe to this channel,
smash that like
first.
button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, all that good stuff.
And ring the bell to see all of the jingly janglies. That's how that goes.
So, basically, I was supposed to be working on that review, and then Pokemon Legends Arceus comes out. That occupies 70 hours of my life. And then right after that, Elden Ring comes out. And then there you go, another 130 hours of that. And 2 games back to back. And I would say Elden Ring just even more so than Legends Arceus. Just really, I was engrossed in everything. So I think let's rewind it back and talk about our early experience with the game, because I'll tell you right off the bat, when I first got it, for maybe I would say the first 8 hours of the game, I didn't look anything up. I just wanted to see how much I could figure out, unless maybe like little nitpick things there that I got stuck on. I didn't understand. I'd look up a quick thing, but I just
So
wanted to
I'm
see how that went. So, how was your early experience with Elden
I'm
Ring?
going to actually even take it back further than that for my beginning or early Elden Ring experience. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, I saw all of the hype around Elden Ring because I didn't really start playing it till like 3 or 4 weeks after it came out. And I decided that I need to know if I'm ready for this. So I'm going to pick up Dark Souls 3 and play that a bunch. And had a great time with that. Decided, okay, it's time to pick up Elden Ring. So I ended up buying a PC copy of it and just ran into a plethora of issues. They're very widespread, very well known, like frame rate and skipping issues. I basically ran into them all and did a Steam refund after like 2 hours and was really, really disappointed in that experience. But I remember you telling me, like, you gotta do it. You gotta play Elden Ring. Just get the PS4 version. Just get the PS4 version. It's a good way to play. And then I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I don't know, because that means I'm gonna have to resubscribe for Plus, and I don't know if I want to do that. And then I finally caved and got Elden Ring for the PS4. So there was a brief moment where I would have just walked away from the PC version, not having a great performance experience with that, and was really disappointed. I think it's fixed now, if not fixed, definitely better, and not running into crazy frame skipping issues, because that was really the big thing. It wasn't so much that it would lag or anything, but like every couple of seconds the game would skip, so you would jump forward a little bit, and in a game that demands such intense precision, it just wasn't feasible. It wasn't playable as far as I was concerned. So I ended up picking up the PS4 version, and I was very much the same way. I like going into these games with an idea of what I want to do as far as build wise. So I looked up a couple of builds and how they played, but beyond that, I didn't look up any gameplay stuff, just so I could experience it for myself. And that lasted pretty much all the way through Limgrave for me.
Yeah, so the beginning of the game, I was having a rough time because unlike
What class
you,
did you choose, by the way?
so I ended up choosing, what the hell's his name? The It's not the Confessor, but it's the other one with the faith.
Oh, the Prophet, right?
Yeah, I picked the Prophet because I did want to do, at the time I was thinking of it as kind of like a paladin build where I wanted to do melee, so like strength and faith, thinking kind of to World of Warcraft style, but it ended up turning out to be very different faith builds than what you would think of as like a traditional like holy paladin type of deal,
Yeah,
just
because up
because
until
of what they
recently, faith strength kind of sucked.
yeah, but it definitely works great in this game, and it ended up being much more faith. Like I only got strength to a certain baseline so that I could use certain weapons, and then
Hmm.
I really left strength probably like around 22 for the rest of the game. But the what I initially did, because unlike you, I didn't play like a Souls game like recently before then. Last game I had played was like maybe an hour and a half of Sekiro before it made me too frustrated. I will go back to that game. I really do want to go back, but it just wasn't the right time for me to play that game. So, and other than that, it's like I had played Dark Souls 2, but that was years ago. So I hadn't gotten back into the swing of things for a while. So it took a while for me to like re-get into that mentality of playing a Souls game and the patience and just that control scheme and everything. So it was a rough first few hours, and I was just grinding a lot of mobs just to make myself stronger because I was having a hard time with even basic enemies.
How long did you stay at the camp? You know exactly which camp I mean, probably the one outside the gates where it's just a ton of like Limgrave guards.
I actually, so the first thing I did was, I mean, what everybody does, and I went for the Tree Sentinel because I was like, oh, I beat Dark Souls. I know the deal. Like I want to see, I played a lot of Dark Souls 2. I just want to see like what I'm worth. I knew I knew I was like, just seeing that enemy, I knew what the deal was. I knew
Yeah.
he was going to be tough as hell, but I was like, I want to see if I can do this. So I actually tried the tree sentinel maybe like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. And before I went forward, I kind of felt I didn't really realize at the time because I felt like, oh, maybe I can't get past him. So I went backwards, and I was doing more of
Interesting.
like the lake air that I forget what the lake's called, but the lake around Limgrave. So that camp where there's the dogs and all that stuff, and
Hmm.
the stupid thing that warps you to Caelid, like the chest that warps you to
Oh
Caelid.
man, we'll
Yeah, so
get to that.
that frightened me, but I was spent a lot of time fighting those crabs by the lake and all that to try and level up. That was like my grinding spot for a while. Was there's those the three crabs in the lake, and there's a grace right there, and I would just grind them and near where like the bloodhound dudes ever jail is
Hmm.
or whatever. So I
Blood
spent a
Knight
lot of
Darwill, my homie.
yeah, I believe
I
so. So
love Blood Knight Darwill.
yeah, so I spent a lot of time there in the early time, and like I actually had to eventually look up like who the first true boss was because I didn't know where the hell I was supposed to go. But yeah, I did that for about like 6 hours, and I was like,
Oh wow.
I'd only play for like an hour or two at a time before I was like, okay, I need to take a break. So it took me a while before like I really hit my stride with it, where it was like, oh, now I'm playing like 6 hours at a time, and I can't put this game down. The first like week, I want to say with the game, it would be like I'd play for an hour here or there, and I'd be like, okay, moving on, like whatever. And so it did take me a while to actually get like really engrossed in it.
So I have a question for you based off of that because
Mm-hmm.
in my playthrough I did the same thing. I saw the tree sentinel, I gave it a couple of tries, he iron cheeked me real hard, and then I went past him and went to the Stormvale gate and found the grace there. And at that point, that's when I unlocked the ability to level up when I got my maiden and like eventually grinded out there for a long time to get a couple of levels under my belt. If you went the other direction and ended up like at the shore and the coast, were you still able to level up? Like did you find
Yes.
that elsewhere or
Yeah, so I believe you can go to that grace by the gate and Melina will show up. But otherwise, if you find just three graces, she will just show
Oh,
up at the third grace.
okay.
So she showed up for me where that crab grinding spot was, because that was
Mhm.
the next grace that I found. So yeah, if you go that whole way and you do like the Weeping Peninsula area instead of going up to where Margit is, then yeah, you will still be able to level up and all that.
Oh, nice. That's funny. It's interesting hearing your experience because I pretty much went in a totally opposite direction where I ended up at that camp and then I decided to work my way through the castle, got past the giant, ended up at Margit, and beat my head against that for a while, and decided that I was not ready for this because boy, Margit, that is quite the first like that is the big skill
Oh
check of
yeah.
that game as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
So
Margit is probably one of the best design bosses that they've ever done because it's just the ultimate skill check boss. And yeah,
it
I
is.
think the whole thing with like the tree sentinel made me think I had to go the other way, like because I assumed that there was probably going to be tougher enemies like him like further
Hmm.
up, so I didn't really go that way for a while. But then yeah, I eventually got to Margit, and that boss probably took me either the longest or the second longest of any boss in the entire game, because I think I was like maybe 12 hours in before I finally beat Margit. Like I probably didn't
Yeah, I
find
was
it.
about the same point, I think.
Yeah, I probably didn't find Margit until I was like 6 hours in, because like I said, I was like, where the hell am I actually supposed to go? And then I would try it, then I'd go off, I'd level some more, I'd try again, I'd try again and try again, because it was just a really tough boss, but also done in a way that for new people Margit is going to give you hell, and even for skilled veterans, Margit is designed to give you hell because
Oh, absolutely.
he has all of these fake out abilities that make you think it's safe to go in and attack, and then he pulls out his magic sword and messes
And
you up.
just pokes you enough to
Yeah,
kill you.
there's so
I
many
know.
areas where you thought you had an opening, but you didn't.
Yeah, that's what I love about him so much. It's both him and the Tree Sentinel. I think they were like perfectly placed to make you unlearn everything you know about Souls games, because with the Tree Sentinel, you are conditioned to think like, okay, I ran into a boss, I see a boss health bar, I need to kill this thing in order to progress. Where in reality, with the Tree Sentinel, you are nowhere near ready for him, and you can go around him. You can take a couple of steps to the right and totally not aggro the Tree Sentinel at all, or just run right past him. You don't have to fight him. It's the big unlearning of going through all of these meticulous environments in previous Soul games into the open world that is Elden Ring. And then there's Margit, who is the exact same thing, where you're conditioned to find these openings in Souls games previously because the boss will choreograph exactly their swing, and you know, okay, that's when I can go in, get 2 hits, and then go out, and then do it again until he dies. Well, with Margit, he encourages you to go in with those fakes and then takes you out. You need to unlearn everything you know about Souls games to succeed in Elden Ring within those first 8 hours of the game. Like, those 2 pieces of the puzzle are so well crafted and just really set the pace for the rest of Elden Ring. But it's definitely one of those things where if you can't make it, then maybe this isn't the game for you. Because I will say, like, Elden Ring is probably one of my favorite games ever. I would go as far as saying it is a top 3 game, but there is a very small crowd of people I would recommend playing this game to. And if you can't get over those first 2 hurdles, then you have no chance at getting anywhere in Elden Ring.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think Elden Ring is the most accessible Souls game by far.
Oh, without a doubt.
Just
but
because you don't have to hit
accessibility
that
doesn't
brick
mean
wall.
ease.
Well, yeah, I would say the ease is in the play style, right? Because I do think I agree, like, if you can't get past Margit, then you're probably not going to get past the rest of the game. But I think if you can beat Margit, you can beat any boss in the game. But
I agree.
while there is no difficulty mode in the game by definition, there are builds and abilities and things that you can use to make your life much easier. There is an easy mode. And so if someone does want to have an easier time, they can build their character in a way that is complete BS and have the time of their life Kamehamehaing everything to death. So,
all right, let's confess here.
Yeah.
How many bosses did you kill with Rotten Breath?
Oh, far too many.
You
Rotten
and
Breath,
me both.
Yeah, but that's why I'm doing my second playthrough where I'm not doing any Ash summons, but I am being cheap as hell because I'm still using Rivers of Blood.
Yeah.
But,
okay, so you took the cheapest thing and traded it for the second cheapest thing. Yeah. Here's my hats off to you, sir.
Hey, I had to get through Morgott to get to Rivers of Blood. So believe me, I had a tough time trying to do those other bosses soloing. And maybe I used a little bit of Rotten Breath on Morgott, but just because he is such a tough boss for me. I don't know what it is, but
you want to know something funny? I one-shot Morgott.
Really?
Like, I know a lot of people say he's like one of the toughest bosses and late game bosses in the game. I did not have that experience at all. I went in, I did Nefeli Lose quest, and just like my spirit summon, Nefeli and I just tore Morgott a new one and just ended up one-shotting him. It that plateau is a weird place for me, or that platform, because I one-shot Morgott and I one-shot Godfrey. Like,
oh wow,
there's supposed to be cool things there. I did not get to experience them.
Yeah, Godfrey, when I was using Rotten Breath, Mimic Tier, all that stuff, I destroyed in maybe like 3 tries. But having played it now on my solo no Ash Summon or Rotten Breath playthrough, that was a much bigger challenge doing Godfrey, because that second phase, he has so many grab attacks, even if they don't look like a grab attack,
They
that
are.
I had a very hard time with that. And now I made it up. I haven't beat the final boss yet, but I've kind of just not been playing as much lately. But rewinding back a bit, I think we can say again, like, the beauty of it is you don't have to be stuck on a boss, that you can go and explore. And we have things like catacombs and caves, like mining caves, and just random bosses. Like, you'll enter an area and it's a little empty and you're like, I feel like there's going to be a boss here. And then something
It's when
just
you see that
jumps
summon
down.
sign, that summon sign shows up in the
Yeah.
corner. You're like, oh shit, here we go.
Yeah.
Something's about to jump me. I don't know what it is. I had an amazing experience with that at the very beginning, where again I didn't look anything up basically through all of my time in Lingrave. So I'm going through that swamp, just thinking like, do. I'm just checking everything out, going in another direction, and all of a sudden, boom, a dragon comes down and just takes me right out. And that was like, oh, I need to watch every corner in this game, that I can
Yep.
never be off of my guard, because you never know when something's going to come take you out.
Yeah, that moment where that dragon comes down, like, I was afraid of that dragon for a long time before I finally went back and killed it. And it was very rewarding upon a second playthrough, as that was one of the first bosses I went for, because I'm like, I've fought so many of these dragons now. Like,
You know exactly how to beat
I
them.
know the exact system on how to beat them. So that was a great way to get like a lot of runes early on. And it is funny going back and replaying Margit. Margit seems so slow now. It, like, having played all the later bosses, like, if you went back and fought Margit in a new playthrough or New Game Plus, you're gonna be surprised at how slow Margit is compared to some of the later game bosses.
That's interesting. I am going to play through it again eventually, so I look forward to that.
Just as long as you don't have too much of a gap in between,
Yeah,
like having
yeah,
just
I'll
done
just-
a playthrough and then starting a fresh one. But if you walk away for 6 months, I don't, I think all that's gonna be a little bit, you're gonna be a little bit rusty there.
In theory, because my plan right now is I still need to beat Melania, so I'm going to beat Melania New Game Plus, and go straight to Margit and compare the two.
Nice. That'll be good. If you're not too OP, because you might be able to trivialize him, and depending on how much you leveled up before you go into New Game Plus. So
True.
yeah, we'll have to see. Because I'm pretty sure I was at my buddy's house and he was in a New Game Plus, and he had Rivers of Blood and all that stuff. And I forget what level he was, but he was probably getting close to 200, and we diced up bosses like it was nothing. So yeah, depending on how much you level. But
Mhm.
so one thing that is, I think, a amazing part about this game is how it keeps getting bigger. Like, the map, you see the map at the beginning and it seems big, and then it surprises you. Were there any moments or any maybe portals or anything you took that made you just go,
One in
holy,
particular,
yeah.
maybe.
Because I actually didn't take that one initially, but yeah, if there's any of those moments, please share.
So originally, I thought like my game was broken, because when you first start the game and you hit the map screen, they don't even try to like hide it. It's just like black. You get one little square, and the game and like the rest of the map is just black. It's not grayed out or anything. So I thought my game was broken, and I reinstalled it because of that, not realizing like, oh no, that's just how the game is. So once I got over that, I did my Margit stuff like I mentioned. I realized I'm probably not ready for this, so I was going to go in another direction. That direction took me to Caelid, which is the land of broken dreams as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
There is it's so funny how you can just go a little too far out of Limgrave, which is, it's pretty easy. All in all, it's something that seems difficult at first, but becomes trivialized very quickly. All of the different enemies in Caelid or in Limgrave. Then you end up in Caelid, which is the total opposite. It's a nightmare where dogs have demon feathers and they're giant birds that scraw at you and murder you, and there's dragon knights. Like it doesn't matter who you are. The first time you go to Caelid, you are not ready for Caelid at all. It is a nightmare of a zone. So I ended up going in that direction. I fought the invasion. That one was like, if you consider invasion bosses, that was one of the first bosses I beat. That the lady with the big sword that invades you at the church.
Oh yeah,
and then
yeah.
ended up beating her through just through multiple attempts and learning her moves. Ended up in Caelid, ended up at the tree there in the catacombs by it, realized I should not be here at all, and then went to explore Limgrave some more. So that's when I went the direction that you went and felt like Blood Knight Darwill and his Everjail, and felt like you know how there are parts in these Souls games where you feel like you're about on par with the difficulty,
Yeah, for sure.
with how easily things die and how many hits you're able to take. That's when things started to click for me. I ended up going south and going to that castle. Is it
Castle Morn?
Yeah, Castle Morn, and then fighting the misbegotten guy that you end up fighting like 100 times after that. Like that.
Yeah.
That was my first like health bar boss that I killed, and just eventually getting all the pieces together, clicking that I can beat this dragon. And that's when I ended up finding the nightmare portal that everybody else finds, because if you didn't end up finding it in your playthrough, the people in listener land, there's ruins by that dragon in Limgrave, and all of the runes have like a secret underground room at the bottom of them that you can get some loot in. So you find a couple in Limgrave, you think you're getting something cool. Well, in this particular one, you get the opposite of cool. You get teleported to hell. Like it's not even just you get teleported to Caelid, you get teleported to one of the worst parts of Caelid.
The cave with all these bug people that
shoot needles at you, where even like 50 hours into the game, they still gave me trouble with the ones that are at the Rot Lake. Like that was a awful experience. That was one of the most like I should not be here.
I discovered that pretty early on. It did take me forever to finally get down there because all the little I had so much trouble with those dogs around that Limgrave area. It took me a long time, but finally I went down there, opened the chest after dying so many times to the rats and all that stuff, and it teleports you to a cave that you're stuck in. And eventually I did find the grace, and then as soon as I ran out of the cave, I warped immediately back to Limgrave. I'm like, I saw that place, I'm like, I do not need to be here.
It is the most I am out of here moment.
Yeah, because it is funny how they do that, and I think that's one of those cool moments. It's reminiscent of World of Warcraft when you would go into a zone and you would see question mark level enemies, and you're like, oh god, I'm not supposed to be here, and that danger was a little bit fun. There's a fun factor to it, because in actuality, Limgrave is probably like Area 3, right? You have Limgrave, you have the Lake Liurnia or whatever, and then Caelid's about your level before you get to the Altus Plateau.
Absolutely. Even the early parts of the Altus, I would put above Caelid. It's fascinating how they decided to put that behind the first gate of the game, because eventually you do end up killing Margit, and then you work your way through your first big dungeon area of the game, like the Stormvale Castle. That felt like one of the most Souls experiences to me, working through that castle, going grace to grace, progressing through it. And then you fight your first, what are they called, like Elden Gods?
Oh, what are they?
Elden Lords?
It's like a rune.
God,
I don't know, the rune bearers or whatever.
Yeah, or rune bearers. Yeah, that's it. You fight your first rune bearer, and that's when the rest of the game opens up. Like
or
there
demigods or whatever they are.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
But like the rest of the game is locked behind Stormvale Castle, with the exception of Caelid, and I find that so fascinating. How you
Sort
can
of.
either
because I didn't
What do
know
you mean?
this either. You can actually go around Stormvale Castle. There is a path.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. The
Oh.
only thing that is
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there is a path around it.
Is it an exploit, or is it like
No,
something that they
there is
intended?
you literally can just go around the castle. There is a path. I didn't know about it either. I went through Stormvale. The only requirements, basically, you have to beat 2 like rune holders before you get to Morgott. So you could technically beat Radon and what the hell's his name, Rykard, if you wanted to. And
what's her name at the academy, right?
Yeah, what is it, Renala?
Renalia? Yeah, Renalia.
Yeah, most people would fight Godric and Renala, and then they can fight whoever they want, but like you can get to Morgott at that point. But
so
I believe
is it possible then to kill Morgott before you kill Margit?
Yes. And what happens is he's just not there. He's not there.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is cool. You can actually do that. And I had no idea either, but that is possible. So yeah, you just have to kill 2 people. So it could be Radon and Rykard. Like Radon, I believe, does not show up until you get to his festival doesn't start until you get to the Altus Plateau. Or there's other triggers to get his festival to start. But that's one of them. So, and which you can get to by just getting either the medallion pieces or taking the way up. There's another way up to get to the plateau.
I was interested with that because you can go to Caelid so early in the game. I was curious, like, if you could kill Radon before you kill Margit. But I guess that's not possible. I guess the festival doesn't trigger.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can technically, but you just have to I believe you have to trigger the festival by getting to the Altus Plateau, and there's other ways to do it, but I think that is one guaranteed way to do it. I'm not sure if there's like prerequisite bosses.
Because I'm trying to think.
I believe you could.
I think I killed Radon before I got to the Altus Plateau. And we're talking about him so much. Let's take a moment to talk about Star Scourge Radon and how that's maybe one of the best boss fights that From Software has ever done. That fight felt like a WoW raid boss to me, mostly because you're summoning a bunch of like NPC party members. Probably one of the coolest fights in that entire game as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I really enjoy the spectacle of it. I don't know if I mean, it's got an epic set piece. It's really cool. I don't know if I actually enjoy the fight itself that much,
I love the fight. I went into that fight thinking that I'm going to cheese the hell out of it with Scarlet Rot.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed it.
He is literally the boss that got me to use Scarlet Rot because I was like, how do I beat this dude?
I enjoyed the fight so much I decided to go against it and kill him real way. That's how much I loved Radon and ended up not rot breathing him. God, what a good fight that is.
So yeah, I learned, like, I got the rot breath because I knew he was weak to Scarlet Rot, and then all I did was I summoned all the dudes. They all went in. I rot breathed him, and then I just chilled on my horse and let them do all the fighting, and I just kept resummoning them. And then just gave him a second rot breath in phase 2, and boom, he was gone. Easy.
That's the end of Radon.
Peasy.
Star Scourge, great swords for you.
Yeah, but then my second playthrough, granted, Rivers of Blood, I did no summons, none of the people.
Oh,
and
wow.
No rotten breath, and went in and did beat him, but I was a little over leveled, to be fair, but I did it straight up.
That's cool. I'm going to try that next time, the no summons thing. But the fact that you have this entire party, everything about Radon is so cool. The lore behind him, how he basically consumed all the rot he could to save his entire army, and that's why he's this husk wandering around Caelid now. And the fact that they hold a festival just to try and kill Radon. Like the entire festival thing that we're talking about, the story behind it is that people in Caelid like invite travelers and champions from all across the lands between just to try and kill Radon because they just want to basically put him out of his misery at that point.
He's actually one of the few heroic characters, I think, in the game and in the lore.
Just the love that he shows of man and animal. He literally learned magic just so he could keep riding his horse.
Yeah, and he just wants to go out with a bang, and I respect that.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and there's two ways to trigger the Radon Festival that I see, and that is to activate any grace at the Altus Plateau. I think except for the one, if you take that warp or whatever that takes you all the way up to there's a warp that takes you to like part of Lendell Castle, but you can't really go anywhere besides where a giant is. Oh, okay. So that one doesn't count, but I think any other Altus Plateau grace will trigger the festival, or if you get a certain away through Ronnie's quest line.
Oh, okay. That's what triggered it for me.
Yeah, so you could fight Radon before ever fighting anyone in Stormvale.
That's wild to me.
Or in the Academy. So that's pretty cool.
That's mind blowing to me, but I need to look into the Stormvale Castle skip because that's hard for me to wrap my head around.
It's literally just a path. It's just a path.
That's
I was like,
man, they think of everything.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so really, I mean, and it's funny because I spent a lot of time in Stormvale Castle, but then upon second playthrough, it is amazing how fast you can just run through that place, run by all the enemies, get right to the final boss, whose name is escaping me right now for some reason.
Godric, right? Godric yes. The Grafted.
Yep. Which he also took me quite a long time upon first playthrough because my weapon was just so bad at that point. And eventually I got what became my go-to weapon for my playthrough, which was the winged scythe.
A good weapon.
Yeah, very good weapon. And yeah, once I got that, I was finally doing a reasonable amount of damage to him, and it just made life a lot easier. But it was like by the end, like I knew all of his moves and how to dodge them, except for some of the stuff in phase 2 is a little bit trickier with the fire phase, dragon hand phase.
That's another one that took me a while as well. At that point, I had landed on Sword and Shield, and this was pre-Barricade Shield nerf, which was something I heavily relied on in the early parts of that game. It basically made it so you could block anything with taking barely minimal stamina loss. So I would just like take hits, counter, stagger, take a chunk off the boss. So I was running a shield, the brass shield, and an Uji katana at that point to get like a stagger bleed damage thing going on. So it took me a while to get through Godric as well, but that was the point where the combat really clicked for me. Like the game for me is kind of pre-Godric and then post-Godric, where I was able to start taking these more difficult enemies with ease and didn't just have to sit there and like basically struggle my way through bosses, because I struggled my way through Margit a lot, eventually got him, did the same thing with Godric. It took me a while as well, especially phase 2 and learning how to move around all of the fire that he spews everywhere. But after that, like the entire like lake area, I just breezed through that frickin' place. Like there isn't a single thing that gave me problems in that entire area. It's just like something clicked at that point, and I was like, okay, now the real Elden Ring starts here.
How thorough were you in the lake area though? Because I mean, I felt there isn't like a ton of stuff there, but I do feel like there was definitely some challenging parts. But yeah, the enemies Yeah, most of the enemies in the lake aren't too bad, except for the lobsters. I
Oh,
don't.
the lobsters! I still haven't. I have beaten that game. I have not killed a single lobster.
I actually, yeah, I'm totally with you. And apologies for motorcycles in the background, but I have not. I've also not killed a single lobster.
Mhm.
I thought I was of a reasonable level. I went and started hitting one and
There's
saw
no
how.
such thing.
Yeah, I started hitting one and saw how little the health decreased, and I'm like, nope, I'm out of here. Not worth my time.
There are
Not
two
doing this.
things in that game I will actively run away from: the lobsters and the hands. The big hands.
Oh, I
I
hate those
cannot
hands.
stand those
The great thing
effing
about them
hands.
though is given my build I had fire spells and they don't do well with fire, so that was a great way to take them out.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep, and Rivers of Blood also has fire on it, so that also helps a lot too. But yeah, I was using the flame sling or the black flame abilities, and those were
Okay.
great for taking them out cuz yeah, you go to the Carrion Manor and there's a bunch of those hands just waiting to get you. And they didn't
That
get me the
took me a
second time
while.
around.
I ended up just running through that area, just like a whole, like, nope, 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 nope.
Oh,
Don't want
what
to
did
deal
you
with
start
those. Don't
at,
want.
by the way? What was the class you picked initially?
I started as a confessor just because,
Mm-hmm.
like, my original thought was I want to do sword and shield, or like one-handed weapon and shield, and then have some faith spells woven in. So the confessor was the perfect class for that
Yeah.
for me, and I played that through Renala until I got to the academy, and then ended up specking into like a sorcerer for a bit, just because I wanted to switch it up and try things
Yeah.
out. And you get a lot of arcane spells around the academy and
Oh
in the
yeah.
lake area of the game. So I figured, okay, I got that. I got the Moonveil Katana, which in the early days of Elden Ring was all of the rage. Everybody loved the Moonveil Katana, so I had to try it. Respect into that. Didn't really like it that much. Like I played it for a bit, but then the thing with casters is you're not putting a lot of points into vigor, and there are just so many things in that game that were
Oh yeah.
taking hits off of me.
You need
You
to
need
it
vigor.
doesn't matter what build you are, you need to go into vigor just because things just will continue to hit harder and harder. And it
Exactly.
does get very ridiculous. And
Oh,
yeah, with
yeah.
definitely the second playthrough for Dex build Samurai was amazing to go, and you start with an Uchi Katana, which is great because that's a really, really good weapon. And the fact that you get to start with one
Mm-hmm.
is pretty
And you
amazing.
can dual wield that
Yeah,
pretty quick too,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, it's not too far to get another one, so it is a great start if you wanted to do a Dex build. So now talking about just favorite moments in the game. Anything stand out to you?
Hmm. Do you have one? Come back to me on this one.
Yeah. I mean, I think the underground area as a whole is just discovering that because I remember
Yeah, that was very cool.
I wanted to check out all these Erd trees because I thought that was going to be like a key part of the game because you see the big tree. So I thought like, oh, I have to go to all these little trees, right? Like I thought that was I thought all the big bosses were going to be at the little trees. Like I thought that was kind of the point. So I went to that one, the um, the one kind of near the Weeping Peninsula, north of it or whatever, and that's where that first area is to get down to like the I forget what it's called, begins with an S, like Siofra or something river.
Yeah.
So I make it down there, and there's all these creepy dudes with spears that are pretty tough. But I eventually make it through part of that, and there's all this craziness going on with these ghosts. They look like Taurens from World of Warcraft, kind of a little
God,
bit.
those things were pricks the first
Oh,
time I went down
yeah.
there.
Yeah, shooting all these arrows at you. But it was cool. You had kind of like that little area, that first area in Limgrave where you can go down there. You can't explore the rest of the underground. It's kind of like a self-contained area. But it
Hmm.
kind of has one of those like Zelda-like puzzles where you gotta light all the torches and then you get to fight this really cool like undead moose type of boss,
Yeah,
which
that fight
it
was
was very
awesome.
very scenic and
Correction, the atmosphere was awesome. The boss, not so much. Another thing I one-shot.
Yeah, that definitely is one of the easier bosses, but it's kind of just, it's kind of like Sif from Dark Souls, where it's like, oh, it's not the hardest boss, but it's like one of those really cool bosses,
I think for mine, I think I'm going to piggyback on that a bit, where it's not really so much a moment, but the thing that propelled me through the game, and that's Ronnie's quest line. Like, that was kind of the backbone of my playthrough, and there's a point in Ronnie's quest line where after you kill Radon, like, a meteor crashes in the middle of Limgrave, and then all of a sudden that's when you open up the rest of that underground area and start finding these underground cities. But to go back to Limgrave and find just a giant hole in the map, and then have to traverse down and realizing like, oh god, there is so much more to this game than I thought there was. Like, not only is the map huge, there's a freaking undermap. Like, oh my god, how much of this game is there? And then going to traverse it, like, I think aesthetically those are some of the best zones in the entire game. Those
like the
Nokron
city or whatever.
Yeah, with all the stars above you and stuff. It looks amazing.
It's incredible. And Ronnie's questline I actually didn't even finish till after I beat the game, but I did most of it beforehand. But that is one of the best. It is the best questline in the game without question.
Mm-hmm. It's the best way to play that game, and also the best ending as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, the endings they're kind of interesting. There's no real true like good ending, I would say.
You say interesting, I say crap. How about?
Most of the endings, are rough. I actually ended up, like, I didn't look up any of the endings. I wanted to go in completely, like, whatever ending I get. And I ended up just getting the very basic ending because I didn't look up any of the quest lines thoroughly before I beat the game. And most of them you're just never going to solve unless you like know exactly what to do and look them up. So I didn't do Ronnie's questline until afterwards, while I was still just in my game after I beat it. But I wanted to experience as much of the content as possible. And it definitely is one of the cooler endings. The ending I'm actually going for in this second playthrough is actually Fia's ending, just because I wanted to do something a little bit different. And because it's kind of cool, just I guess we can touch on the endings a little bit, but basically you have the basic ending where you're just Elden Lord and nothing really changes. So the world,
you sit in a chair and
the world's still crap. And then Ronnie's ending is like, it's a little hard to understand, but like she basically is like this, the stars and the moon. I don't know.
Yeah, it's more explained in the quest line itself. Basically, you marry Ronnie and she becomes the Elden Lord and you're her consort as a Tarnished.
But isn't it like she wants to do away with like the world as it's known or something?
Yeah, she's basically going to remake the entire world.
Yeah, so
Ronnie
I mean, I don't know how you survive that, but somehow you might. But what's interesting, what I kind of like about Fia's ending is she basically wants to bring like death back to the world, where because right now the way things work is the Erd Tree like and that's partly why when you rested a grace, like everything comes back, is because like the Erd Tree just keeps resurrecting people of like if you have grace, I guess.
Yeah.
Because there are some things that like don't come back or whatever, but like basically Fia's ending, although still not like a great ending, but it kind of brings death back and the kind of how it's supposed to be, right? That things die and you move on, but I mean, we all know the true best ending is the Dung Eater ending, right?
Oh yeah, where you become the Dung Eater for life. No, when I play through it eventually again, I want to get the Frenzied Flame ending. I have no idea how to do that, but when you get to the snowfields or the mountaintop of giants to the first time, they are so adamant about like, hey, you can do this, but you really don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want this ending, and stuff like that makes me really want that ending. So I want to see that one through next time, because I haven't looked at any of the other endings. I had the option when I finally got through the final boss to either see Ronnie's or the main ones. I've looked at those, but I haven't seen the rest of them.
Okay, then I don't want to spoil the Frenzied Flame ending.
Please don't.
Yeah, I won't, because it's...
I mean, nothing is sacred here, so if you gotta, you gotta.
Yeah.
But
do you know how to get... You don't know how to get it?
I have no idea.
Okay,
how to
I don't
get
want
it.
to spoil... I don't want to spoil any of that for you, because that is... I didn't do it, and it's a whole area that is involved that I completely stayed away from. Like, did you do anything with the... Did you do any part of the Dung Eater quest line?
A little bit. I got the Dung Eater to be a summon. Like, I went through the bells and whistles
so
to do that.
you went to the subterranean shunning grounds.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Okay. So that's an area I got to like the Dung Eater's jail cell or whatever and did that.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a whole other part to that shunning grounds, and that's involved with that quest line. But I won't go any further than that because it's a freaking it's a trip. It's a trip. I'll put it that way. Because I've been watching other people play through. Someone who I haven't watched in forever since the Hearthstone days, but has been playing through Elden Ring, and it's been entertaining. Is Day 9. I've actually really been enjoying his playthrough on Twitch. So it's just been a throwback watching him because I haven't watched him since the old Hearthstone days. So let's start to close things out and talk about favorite bosses in the game.
I would actually like us to rank our top 3 and our worst 3.
Okay, all right. This will be good.
Okay.
Let's start with the worst 3 bosses. I think I'm just gonna say Godskin Duo definitely on that list.
Oh, without a doubt. Those are. Okay, I have a question about the Godskin Duo for you, because that fight is total crap. I hate... Yeah. There was few things I actively hate in that game. That Godskin Duo fight I hate. How many of those guys did you have to fight in that?
So...
I know it's Godskin Duo, but...
Yeah, I think you have to fight like 3 total, maybe, I want to say. So the first time around, I saw that fight and I'm like, I don't like this. So I went Mimic Tier and used the extra summon, like the actual NPC summon too, and Rotten Breath them, and I beat it on like my second try or something. Then my second playthrough, when I went in solo, I think I killed 2 of them outright and then had to kill a third one for it to fully exhaust the health. But technically, if you waited long enough, another one would also come back, and then you could just damage them, whichever ones, because no matter what, their health is always draining. So
yeah. I don't know what I did wrong. Like, I don't know if it's because I had only faced 2 of the big guys up until that point. Like, that was my first encounter with the skinny Godskin guy, and I fought a big guy in Volcano Manor and a big guy doing Ronnie's quest, but I ended up having to kill 6 of those guys in my fight. I had to Rotten Breath
in that Godskin Duo fight?
In the Godskin Duo fight from Rotten Breathing. I don't know if they get more health if you use the summon or something, but 6 of them. Did
you use a real player summon?
No, I didn't. I just used summon.
I think they do have more health with I think they do have more health with an NPC summon. I think that and I know they have more health with a real person summon, so it must apply the same rules.
It was awful.
So that must be what it is. I
regret that so bad. It made it so miserable having to kill them, and it probably didn't help because they, like you mentioned, if you wait long enough, one of them does respawn. I found the best way to do it was like to isolate one of them and let my mimic and the summon take care of the other one. So I would kill them one by one. So when one had no health left, the other one still had full health. So maybe I just went about it the worst way possible. But yeah, that was like me versus 6 of those guys, and what an awful boss fight that was.
Definitely deserves to be in the bottom 3. Okay, you go for the next one.
So for the next one, I'm gonna kind of group a series of bosses together. I think some of the worst fights in that game are dragons. Once
Really?
you get over that initial shock of the first dragon coming down and taking you out, I just find it's way too easy to figure it out and cheese
Mm-hmm.
them, that it takes all of the excitement of the dragons out of that game. Like, there are exceptions. Like, I would say the magma worm is still fun, especially the one that has the sword. That's a really cool fight. And there's a dragon on a bridge near the bestial sanctum in
Yeah.
Caelid that you have to fight, and it takes away the like your horizontal axis, so you're not able to just kind of go around them easily and dodge their fire and go to the tail and take a couple swipes at them and take them out easily. You have a very limited space to work with, and it adds a degree of fun to that fight. But beyond that, I didn't enjoy any of the dragons, because it's, let's do the same thing, but there's a different gimmick thrown in. Like, one of them has the ancient lightning, the other one has the rotten breath, the other one has the ice breath, the other one has
Yeah.
the no breath. So I was very disappointed by dragons in that game after that first initial fight in Lingrave, where I struggled and then eventually got over that
Yeah.
hump.
So I don't mind the repeated. I guess, the repetitiveness. There's plenty of bosses we see repeated over and over again. And I don't mind that, because it seems like, they always add like another wrinkle to it, right? Except for maybe some of the tree guardian guys. Some of those are like literally exactly the same, but some of them they do add like a move or something in there. I didn't mind the dragons, because once you learn how to fight one, yes, you basically know how to fight all of them, but they would always throw in some wrinkle to make it interesting. So I didn't mind it as much, but I can see where you're coming from on that for sure.
Do you have something you'd rather put on this list?
Oh yeah, 100%. Commander Nile is on my list of
God.
bosses
Yes.
that can die a death. I still never beat him straight up. I do the cheese where I go outside and shoot poison arrows at him and cheese
You
him.
told me about this, and I'm so mad I didn't know about it, because I went in
that fight is not fun to me, but it's like I need to get to the damn snowlands, so I gotta get through that guy. But yeah, I hate that boss, and I don't care if I have to cheese it. It's my favorite snack anyway. But
shout out to Cheez-Its and all of their glory.
Yeah, screw that boss. I hate it.
Yeah, that one was not that is a time when I just genuinely did not have fun in that game, because those two ads that he have are just so powerful, and I never really truly figured them out. Like that's an enemy that I would just kind of potion my way through in his castle. Then all of a sudden, like, boom, here's a boss, and you got to fight two of them along with it. So I ended up beating it without cheesing it, if you count beating it with my mimic, not cheesing it.
I couldn't even with
a
mimic tier. I still struggled like hell to beat that boss. So,
by the time I got to that boss, I had ditched sorcery altogether and decided to go back to like sword and shield with a crap ton of vigor and just kind of health my way through it. And the perfect supplement to that build is the blasphemous blade. That thing is a miracle because of its Ash of War, where you heal every time it hits it. So I just basically like blasphemous blade spammed my way through that boss and eventually got him. It took a few tries, but I got there.
Yeah, it's an amazing weapon. I will tell you that. And that it was a great weapon against Melania, because I had my mimic tier and we were both popping off.
I'm still
knocking her down, because you knock her down with the Ash of War. So you got to take advantage of that.
Yeah, but you need to find an opening to get that Ash of War
it
off,
shoots
and that
fire
is not
for
easy.
You get it. It shoots fire for like a mile. You just keep your distance and spam.
But Melania can go like 2 miles in the time.
Yeah,
that you gotta have
your mimic needs to get aggro. All right.
Yeah, that is a hell of a fight. I still haven't
do I
beaten
even want to
Melania.
try it solo? Even with River's Blood, I don't know if I'm making it out alive on that one. At least not without hours and hours of practice. So
yeah, and as far as bad boss fights, the only one that I like, those three would be my list, with
Yeah.
the dragons in there. The only other thing that I would consider that I didn't really have a great time with was Moog, the Lord of Blood,
Yeah.
just because of everything on the ground. I spent less time enjoying the fight and more time worrying about was I standing in the bad stuff. Like if I
Yeah.
wanted to do that, I would have just played World of Warcraft some more,
Yeah.
and just didn't. I didn't have a great experience with that fight. I ended up beating him on like my second try, but this is supposed to be like one of the big bosses, the demigods in the game, and just was I did not enjoy that experience at
I
all.
was way too OP by the time I fought him, and just like, because I fought him after I beat the game,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it was like second try or something because I was just way too overpowered. But so it's tough for me to like rank that as a bad boss. Oh, other terrible boss. I still haven't beaten it. That stupid Deathrite bird.
Oh yeah, on the
Yeah,
way to Commander Null, he sucks.
yeah, definitely on the list. Again, one of those bosses where I'm like, eventually I was like, I hate this thing. I don't have to fight this thing. I'm moving on. This
Mm-hmm.
thing sucks.
That boss, I wouldn't rank it just because I feel like that's a me problem that I can't figure out the death
No,
bird.
that
but
boss sucks.
now hearing you had that exact same experience, maybe it's not me. Maybe it is the bird. Maybe the bird is the problem here.
Yeah, the bird sucks.
I just decided this. Nope, I'm not doing this. I'm just going right past you. Come on, Torrent, let's get out of here.
Yeah. Okay, best bosses.
Best bosses.
Start us off.
I would have to go with my. Now, I'm saying this having not beaten Melania. I'm still struggling with. I'm at the point where I can pretty comfortably get to phase 2, but my God, just I haven't been able to figure out phase 2 yet. But so she might, at the end of that, she might be able to make like number 3 on my list, but I can't see her going any higher than that. But until then, it has to go to Radon, Starscourge Radon, for all of the reasons I mentioned earlier. I love that fight so much. It is just this huge atmospheric. He feels like a raid boss to me,
Yeah.
because of all of the summons that you have, and I love the weapons and armor that you get. Most like most of the player base, the second I was able to equip Radon's armor, I did for a considerable chunk of the game.
It's basically like the best. Once you beat him, it's basically like some of the best armor you can get until like a little bit. Like for most of the game, it's like some of the best armor you can get. Obviously, there is some other crazy armor, like the bull goat armor or whatever. But yeah, it's and his bow is very good too. His other weapons are
I really
super
liked
good.
it. I used the great swords. Like I used the great swords through Volcano Manor.
Well, those abilities are pretty nasty.
It's Ash of War, where it sucks everything in and then just like slams the ground. I love that ability. It's everything about Radon is great.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I don't necessarily love like the straight up like mechanics. Like if you really break it down, like all of his moveset is kind of bullshit to me. But I love the spectacle and, like you said, the mechanics of like summoning and the whole starting where he's like shooting arrows at you, and it really feels like this epic war and everyone's rushing into battle. Totally with you on the set piece, the spectacle of it. As far as like the actual pound for pound, move for move fight, I'm not as big on it, but I agree that it's still one of the best in the game for everything else that it brings to the table. So, yeah, it's like I'll enjoy the heck out of watching someone play that fight,
but the actual fight itself,
I don't always want to be the one that's actually playing it. So
that's fair.
But I agree that it deserves to be on like the top best. So,
what's your number 3? Or do you want to just do like back and forth?
Like,
for
yeah, we can just
ones?
go back and forth. Like, I think Margit has to be on there as one of the best bosses in the game. Like, it is that skill check boss, but I think, like I said, like how it's designed, I think is amazing to make it challenging, to find a way to make a boss both doable and challenging for new and returning, like in new players and veterans of like the Souls series. To be able to find that balance, and maybe it is a little overtuned, but I think if this was another linear Souls game, it would be overturned.
Oh, absolutely.
But the fact that there is so much you can do and then come back to make it easier for new players, I think it is maybe only slightly overtuned, but I still think it's fine. Like, it doesn't need to be changed.
Yeah, I agree with that. If it would be, imagine if you just went from like the starting place right to Stormvale Castle, like it would be impossible. You'd have an awful time, but the fact that you can supplement all of these different boss fights and then go back to Margit like that, and everything I've already said, it's such a brilliant design. I what a great boss fight that is.
All right, what do you got?
For number 2 for me, now we hadn't really talked about it much to this point, but I'm going all the way to the end of the game, and I would say that that final combination of Radagon and the Elden Beast is my second favorite fight in that game, and I it does get a lot of flack, and I understand that, but to me, it is a masterclass example of From Software's both boss design and boss environmental design.
Oh yeah.
The thing that I love, like God, if I wish I could fight just Radagon on his own, because what a great fight that is. But it's the music that makes me love it so much, because the music dictates your strategy on that fight. I don't know if you picked up on that or not, but with Radagon, the music's very menacing, like the and you need to be in Radagon's face. You need to keep pummeling him before he pummels you, because if you go slow with Radagon, you're going to, not only are you going to eventually get out DPS'd, but you're going to be out of resources for the Elden Beast. You need to be hyper aggressive in order to beat Radagon as fast as possible, to have as much as you can to stand a chance to get the Elden Beast. So you do that, then you get to the Elden Beast, and the music changes. It's very melodic, very piano, very methodical, and that's your approach that you need to take to the Elden Beast. If you rush in constantly, you're not going to stand a chance against the thing. You need to pick your spots, know when to hit them, know when to run away. You need to match your play style to the music, and that, to me, when all of that clicks together, that is what makes the From Software experience special, and nothing in that game really encompassed that more than the final boss fight for that, and I love it so much for that reason.
Yeah, I agree. Radagon and the Elden Beast would also be on my pick of best boss in the game. Like you said, I love the two contrasting styles in which you have to fight these two bosses back to back. You have to be much more aggressive against Radagon, but still there is a lot of mechanics you got to learn there too. And he's aggressive, you got to be aggressive. But then Elden Beast, the way that it's designed is like you can't just sit there and tank damage and spam him, because he runs away, and he runs very far away.
Yeah,
you are stuck just learning how to deal with all of the stuff that he throws at you. You got to jump over rings and dodge all these crazy light holy beams that are shooting at you. And I think most of the Elden Beast fight is super fun, but that tail end where he has that like those spinning
the shooting star thing, that just
never ends.
Bullshit.
It goes on for so long, and you're just like, what the hell? When is this going to end? I dodged 3/4 of it, but then the last of it gets you, and you're just like, oh my God.
So I have a confession that I need to make here before we continue, and it's most of the reason I want to do a second playthrough. For whatever reason, I don't understand what happened, but when I beat the Elden Beast, he like froze for a third of his health bar. For the last third of his health bar,
that can happen. And then you just wailed on him.
And then I just wailed on him and killed him. And like, I'm not above that. I will take that W. I earned that. I did that. So I feel like I need to take another crack at the Elden Beast at some point.
Well, so when I beat the Elden Beast, I literally died as I killed him.
Oh.
So I didn't get the runes for killing him, because like I couldn't go back and get my runes. They were in this wherever the hell the Elden Beast.
They were in the water area wherever the Elden Beast lives.
But I did beat him, so I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll take it.
That W.
I can't refight it. Like it wouldn't let me refight him. I would have done it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's. So I do got to redeem myself, and I am on Radagon, but there's still a few fights I haven't done, but I don't know if I want to care to go do them or not. Some fun experiences though, just to kind of close things out. One of the fights.
What about our number one?
Oh, a number. I thought that was the number one.
That's my number two.
Oh, it's your number two?
Do you have a different number one, or?
No. I mean, other ones I'd put on there. I mean, I'd put Godfrey on there as one of the best fights in the game. And like, I think Melania's up there, but I hate her stupid anime attack that I think is just a little too
Oh, the waterfowl
BS.
dance? Or
Yeah, the waterfowl
is?
dance is a little bit too BS. But otherwise, I think it is a good fight, and it has its place. And I think aesthetically, and the score of that fight, and how the music changes from phase 1 to phase 2 is all like masterfully done. But it's not one of my favorite fights. But I think it's a very fun fight to watch other people do.
Yeah,
and like
100%.
the whole theme and spectacle of it is amazing. It's just not one of my favorites because it's kind of a BS fight, but has its place. It's meant to be that end game fight that's super, super hard, but not required, right? So.
Yeah, it definitely serves that purpose. The only fight that I would put on or put above the final fight is, I would have to say it is Malekith, the Black Blade, the big dude you fight at the end of that weird... What is that? Like a weird hurricane
the
prison?
crumbling Farm Azula.
Yeah, the crumbling Farm Azula. It's the only From Software boss that I've ever faced that I wish had a bigger health bar because I was just having so much fun with that
I'm not
fight.
a big fan of that fight.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. It's a very intense fight, and he's jumping all over the place. And it was one of those fights that it was just, I could never really get the full thing down. And I just kind of, whenever I beat him, I was getting lucky, basically.
Yeah, that's fair. Because when you first get past that phase 1 where it's the beast clergyman or whatever he's called, and then he takes his robe off, and by God, it's Malekith. It seems daunting. He's just moving so fast, jumping everywhere. It seems impossible. And then that's a fight that I just eventually beat my head against until I managed to get all of his moves down and figured it out, and I loved that experience. I loved it so much, I wish it wasn't a shared health bar between the Beast Clergyman and Malekith. I wish there was more to that boss fight that I could experience, and easily my favorite fight in that game.
Yeah, I not as big on that one. Just I didn't like the mechanics of like the lower health bar and stuff, but I don't think it's anywhere near bad. Like, and then there was a fight I was just thinking of and I just forgot about. But an interesting thing about Farm Azula is, so if you fight, I don't know did you do the other boss fight there, the secret boss fight? I don't know if do you not know about
the dragon
Lord Placidusax, like that.
Yeah.
The one where you have to reverse time.
Brand. Yeah.
So yeah, you see that like Farm Azula used to be like this all put together kingdom or whatever. But if you notice, all around the like Limgrave especially, you see just like those ruins. Like it's like you realize like those are pieces of Farm Azula. Like if you notice, like they look like they belong there. So, and then when you fight the Dragon Lord, it's like all those pieces are like together or whatever. But I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. And also, that fight, the pharmaceutical brand. What is his name? Fal Salansalax?
I think it's like Dragon Lord Placidusax, I want to say. Or am I thinking there's another dragon that has a weird name too?
Please consult your doctor before you use Placidusax.
There's something, or is
I just needed to get that joke in.
There's a dragon that you fight, like Fia's dragon also has a weird name, so I forget what the names are.
That's Lich Dragon or something or other.
Whatever. There's two of those dragons. There was another big fight that I was thinking we didn't mention, but whatever, I can't think of it. But I know we talked about like Rykard is kind of a fun gimmick fight.
Yeah, Rykard's a cool gimmick. I felt so smart when I killed that fight because I was struggling with the serpent a lot. And then I'm like, wait a minute. They gave me a weapon. I'm going to try it.
Yeah, see, that's what I did was I got there. I picked up the weapon. I fought him once without using it. And then I just stopped playing for the rest of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And like the next time I played, I totally forgot I picked up that weapon. So I
Oh,
struggled
what
on him
an
for
awful time
forever.
to quit.
And I was like, I didn't hear anyone else complaining about him. And then I looked up, like, I was like, screw it. What's the strategy? And it was like, oh yeah, they gave me a weapon. And then, yeah, it was much, much easier. But I wanted to maybe close it out with us talking about like maybe our most rewarding moments, because I have two examples, one in my first playthrough, one in my second. And the first one actually being against like a boss people don't really talk about, but that's like the shade of Godfrey that you first fight before Morgoth, the golden Godfrey that you fight
Oh, right,
with the
yeah,
axe
yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. So that was a situation where I tried to using my Ash summon at the time. I didn't really level it up that much, so it was just getting stomped into the ground, and
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really use my spells on him because it just wasn't doing enough damage, and it wasn't working. And I'm like, I can't block this guy with my shield, so I was like, I just gotta hunker down, dual wheel, like two hand my scythe, and I just ran that fight into the ground, like just learned every single mechanic. So by the time I beat him, like I was basically taking no damage, like dodge rolling everything
How
perfectly.
good does that
Yeah,
feel?
and when you finally get that down and you get the dance down, it is one of the most rewarding. So even though I don't think that's like one of the best bosses in the game, it was just one of those more rewarding moments.
Mm-hmm. And that's really one of the coolest things about that game.
Yeah.
It's these little micro moments from your experience, because for me, I one-shot Godwin, I put out my mimic, and then we mowed through him and moved on. So
Yeah.
even though it's the same boss fight, we had such a different
Yeah,
experience.
depending on your build and whatever situation, skill, like it's always interesting to hear like who spent a lot more time on other
Mm-hmm.
things. And I did remember that thing previously. I did want to give a shout out to the Fire Giant as being one of the more cooler bosses in the game.
Yeah,
He's
the
kind
fire
of
giant's cool.
BS. He's kind of BS with like you could be doing so well and then he could just one shot you out of nowhere, which kind of sucks. But otherwise, I think it is one of the best designed like giant fights that I've seen in a video game.
Yeah,
So
I cheesed my way through that fight. I'm not going to even deny it. I
I don't
looked
even know how you cheese
online.
that unless you did the thing where he like falls off a cliff or something.
I didn't do that, but I looked online, and there is an obscene amount of iframes in that fight where if you use torrent, you can basically like go right through his attacks. So you can go to that, run up to him, breath, run away, breath, run away, and just like
Okay.
iframe your way through that fight to the point where he can't hit you. It was total BS. I don't deserve that win, but I'll take it
Oh,
again.
yeah. No, I had to do it straight up, chipping away at him. And yeah, because there is a way, like in phase two, like because you attack his foot at first,
Hmm.
and then what I do in phase two is I attack his other foot, which doesn't do that much damage, but you can chip away at him. But an actual way to damage him more, but it's more risky, is when he puts his hands down a lot in phase two because he's like
Yeah.
not, he's on his knees or whatever. And if you can attack his hands and it does a lot more damage, but it's way riskier. But it's interesting, like you can have different styles where it's easier to be behind him and just swing at his leg and do less damage, but be safer. And that's the route I've gone. And it takes a
Hmm.
while in phase two,
As far as
but
I'm concerned, that's the only route to take, because
yeah,
it's not worth the risk.
yeah, exactly. But all right, and then so I'll give. Do you have a moment in mind for like your most rewarding moment, or do you want me
Mine
to
is
go?
very similar to yours. It just replace Godwin or Godfrey with Malekith,
Yeah,
where
there's a
that
lot
was
of Godfrey, Godwin,
Godfrey's, Godwin's.
Godfroy. Like,
Yeah, that at that I just laughed at that boss fight.
yeah,
Like, really, guys,
you're
did
really
you
gonna
run out of
reskin.
ideas?
Yeah, you're really gonna reskin Godric, but he
Like,
has a
we
whole
need
lore.
something.
At least they came up with the whole lore behind him. But yeah, that was BS. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, for me, I had that exact same experience with Malekith later in the game, where I consistently got my butt handed to me when I was doing that fight, and I was just in this zone after a while, and it was like 1:30 in the morning on a work night, and I needed to beat Malekith. I would get like a little sliver closer every single time, and I would keep making progress, and I just you know, when you have those runs and everything just clicks and enter like this trance and everything goes good. That was me with Malekith, and I got so excited I barely slept that night, suffered for it tremendously the next work
Yeah,
day.
too much adrenaline after that.
And then, yeah, just that's probably a really big reason of why Malekith I have such a fond memory, and I consider it my favorite boss fight of that game. Just that like perfect moment of everything clicking together and being able to just like be on a whole other level with that fight. I loved it so much.
Yeah, it's always that feeling of like your first attempts, you're just getting destroyed, and then to make that progress and finally take it down, like learn all the mechanics, it is the most rewarding experience.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I dislike that Far Missoula area, I love it aesthetically, but God, every enemy is a pain in the ass in that place.
Sucks so
Those
bad.
stupid, like, friggin', like, they look like the things from World of Warcraft, the Worgen, dude. You know, they look like
the
Worgen.
beast pricks.
Yeah. They're so annoying. But my second playthrough, one of the most rewarding boss fights, was not one you might think. It was the Draconic Tree Sentinel outside of Lendell. So my weapon kind of sucked. Like I had a Uchigatana that I didn't like invest too much in like upgrading it, but like I'm trying to speed run to Rivers of Blood so I can go around and destroy everything, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of trying to go on torrent and jump around and try and slash them bit by bit, I upgraded my bow and got poison arrows, and I was on foot, and I killed the Draconic Tree Sentinel by just basically going like half naked so I would be fast and have poison arrows and learn to dodge everything. Like he would shoot the fireballs and the lightning at me, and I learned how to dodge all of it and just took him out by dotting him up with poison arrows and just kept shooting away at him and took him out completely with a bow. And it was by the end to do that was very rewarding. I had to keep going back and buying tons of arrows, but it was a ton of fun to do.
If it works, it works.
Yeah. So
what a great game.
Yeah.
What a great
just
game.
An amazing game. If you sat through all this and you still haven't played the game, go play it, even though we didn't even really spoil that much, I feel like, you know, so if you are still on the fence about getting it and you made it this far, I would highly encourage you guys to go play it.
Absolutely. Elden Ring is a once in a generation game as far as I'm concerned. It's like I mentioned, I would consider it one of my top 3 favorite games of all time. I will remember this moment in time fondly, the first playthrough that I had of Elden Ring.
Yeah, it feels like, you know, every once in a while a game comes along, like you said, and kind of like defines a moment in time. And I think the last game before that was probably Breath of the Wild, right? And that was a pivotal game that you now see ripples, like the ripple effect in all of games today, where a lot of games took inspiration from Breath of the Wild, and now we see Elden Ring come out, and it would not surprise me if more games are going to be trying to emulate that, and whether or not they capture what truly
will be the operative word.
Whether or not they capture what actually makes Elden Ring a fantastic game will remain to be seen. But definitely, you know, whether through YouTube comments or Discord, make sure to join us, or, you know, links in the description. But let us know if you played Elden Ring. Let us know your experience. We want to continue the conversation. As I said,
let's see your favorite boss fights. Give us your top 3. I'm curious how much they differ from ours.
And I did actually on my channel, Game Essays, do an Elden Ring boss tier list. I don't know if you know about that, Keith, but
I did know about that. Did I watch it yet? No, but it's in my queue.
But for those who have not, they can go check that out as well. But Keith, this was a lot of fun, and
until the next one of these comes along in a few years, I'll see you then.
Yeah, well,
actually, luckily, I'll see you before then in like a couple of weeks when we're back for our regularly scheduled Pokemon quest.
But yeah, I mean, hey, I think we still both have some FromSoft games we can go to as well. So there's still experiences for us to have before we get whenever the hell the next
maybe someday we'll start like a FromSoft book club where we all suffer together through the back.
We got to do Sekiro and Bloodborne Bloodborne and
I don't want to do Bloodborne again. I don't have it in me.
I need to do Bloodborne, and I need to do Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro. So, and Demon Souls if I get a PS5. But anyway, if and whenever that happens.
Indeed.
But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will be back soon in a few weeks with our Pokemon series. So until then, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.